at part of what we now claim for the Annenberg School. We're a little acquisitive here. And one of the things we acquired with our territory was Jim Loper and his PhD, who went on to become really one of the true pioneers in public television with his role in creating KCT, then becoming the first president or chair of the board of PBS, doing so many of the things that we now take for granted. And for the last, he went on, as many of you know, then to run the Television Academy of Arts and Sciences. But I think I can't think of a place where he's performed a better role than as a professor here at the Annenberg School at USC, where his students are so fond of him, and I every now and then have the fun of just thumbing through the comments that the students make at the end of the classes, and they are just filled with, appropriately, with praise and love for the wonderful Jim Loper. So please join me in welcoming and congratulating and celebrating Dr. Jim Loper, Professor Jim Loper.
Well, I would start out by thanking everyone in the room for being here. And if I started in on single introductions, we would be here the rest of the afternoon and Bill Kling would miss his plane. And I don't think we want that to happen. But I would single out one person particularly who has been my friend and wife and companion for 51 years. My wife, Mary Lou Loper. Who spent 36 or 7 years at the Los Angeles Times, ending as the senior society writer there. And so we all come from a family that has interest in the kinds of things which our students are learning and all of the wonderful faculty that we have here, and the staff and faculty, I must say, because I couldn't do without the support that several people like Carol and Deb have done over the years. So, and finally, in these kinds of remarks, I must say something about Jeffrey Cowan, this is the last time that he will be involved in this program for several years, perhaps. We hope to get him back. He is leaving as the dean at the end of this school year, taking a sabbatical leave at the Kennedy School for Government at Harvard, and a well-earned sabbatical during that time. I'm sure he will be busier than he has been as dean, which would be impossible to imagine. But Jeff Cowan deserves a tremendous round of applause for all of the wonderful work that he has done, and we appreciate it. I am delighted to be able to introduce the person who is going to introduce Bill Kling today. He is the president of Southern California Public Radio, which is the corporation that was established with KPCC and Pasadena City College. And I must say also that we have nothing happens entirely by accident. Jeff Baum, who is our assistant dean here, who is staging these events and all of the nice things that we do at the University of Southern California and at the Annenberg School. He is also the chairman of the board of Pasadena City College. And so, Jeff, thank you for everything that you do for us, too. And as long as I have the podium, it's hard to get me away, I want to introduce the senior broadcast professional in Southern California, who has been at everything that we have ever done, who is a regular speaker in my classes, who is one of the best-known news reporters in Southern California, Stan Chambers. So now I will introduce Bill Davis, who is the CEO of Southern California Public Radio. Under his leadership, KPCC has become the fastest growing public radio station in Southern California. And he has done a remarkable job of supervising people that have been there and others who are interested and molding that into one of the finest public radio stations in this country. And naturally we'll thank Bill Kling as well for all of the work that he has put into this and the expertise that has been brought by, first of all, Minnesota Public Radio and then Southern California Public Radio. Bill Davis is a former senior vice president of National Public Radio. Some of you know that, and Brenda knows it very well, Brenda Barnes. Former general manager of KUNC FM in Chapel Hill. The other station that he was connected with was WBFO FM in Buffalo, New York. He is a Southern Californian, unlike some of the other media organizations in Southern California that have imported people who do not know the lay of the land, so to speak, in Southern California. Bill is a graduate of Occidental College and is a Southern Californian who does know his way around the city and was an ideal person to place in charge of Southern California Public Radio. He has a master's in journalism from UC Berkeley and an MBA from the University of North Carolina. It is with great pleasure that I introduce the man behind the man, Bill Davis, the president of Southern California Public Radio.
Thank you very much, Jim. I'm going to direct my introductory remarks to the students here who may not listen to public radio much, may not know much about the history of National Public Radio or of public radio generally. And so what you're in for here is a present at the creation moment, because Bill was, along with Jim, was present at the creation of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, where the words "and radio" were actually handwritten into the legislation just seconds before President Johnson signed it into law. What you don't know is that Bill was there on his 5th grade civics class and just happened to be there. And then 2 years later, on his 7th grade trip to Washington, D.C., he just happened to be there when National Public Radio was created. And then I think it was for a high school production that Prairie Home Companion became known to us with Garrison Keeler, his classmate. But what's amazing there is that Bill has been at every single significant event within the history of public radio, and he's been there first. Whether it, as I said, is the creation of NPR, the creation of a Prairie Home Companion, Public Radio International, American Public Media, and he's also been there in a way that no other public broadcaster has, where most public broadcasters have been, let's say, eager to operate in a university or other type of bureaucratic environment. Bill has constantly pushed the entrepreneurial boundaries of public broadcasting in a way that I think is truly unique, not only as a model for public broadcasting, but for all of nonprofit organizations in America. So you might want to answer that. It gives me absolutely great pleasure to introduce Bill Kling, who is the president and CEO of the American Public Media Group, and also of Minnesota Public Radio. And I think you all are in for a treat because Bill has insights into public purpose capitalism, public service journalism, bringing audiences together, extending service to new audiences, and constantly having a focus on how we can do all of these things better. So all of you, listen up, enjoy, and join me in welcoming William H. Bill Kling to the Loper Lecture.
Well, now that I'm a student here at USC, I'm hoping soon to graduate. This is a wonderful opportunity, and Jeff, I thank you for it, and I thank the board of directors of the Loper Lecture Series, which I think includes you and Jim, if I remember right, for asking me to come and present this second in the series of what we hope will be annual Loper Lectures in public service broadcasting. Hardly anybody asks us to talk about public service broadcasting, and it's a pleasure to be able to do it. Jim, I wanted to do this because of Jim's role in public broadcasting. Jim is a real pioneer in this business. He was out blazing the trail when it was really not very much fun in the 1960s. I came along at the end of that decade when the trail was just about to be paved, and the idea of public broadcasting was going to be funded by Lyndon Johnson's legislation. So doing that spade work made all the difference for all of us that have followed along. I've been, unlike Jim, who really was primarily in public television, I've been a public radio developer and an advocate of public radio for my entire career. So that's the way I think, and that's the bias that you're going to see and hear in everything I say today. Radio is an intimate medium. It's a very personal medium. It's local with national and international content. It goes wherever you go. Traffic is our friend. Radio works in your head. You listen to and hear stories that work in your imagination. And that sort of unconscious process of embedding images in your imagination is what makes radio so powerful. You remember it, you recall it, sometimes you end up humming it, you just can't get away from it. With 600 million radios in the United States, we don't really give it much credit anymore. It's not as high-tech or as exciting as iPods or other things, but 600 million is a lot of machines, and it's really the workhorse medium. It's really delivering the audiences and delivering programs to very significant audiences all across this country and in every American household every day. It's always been a very effective, personal, one-way medium. But then one day, we got our wish, and a wish that many of us had made over time, that we could somehow engage with the audience, that we could have a two-way interactive medium, that as listeners we could search for content and find stories that we had remembered and wanted to listen to again, that we could send audio or video to someone else that we thought might find that interesting, that we could access a program that we'd heard and listen to it again when we wanted to, that we could control when and where we would listen and what we would listen to, that we could use video to illustrate a radio story, and that our stories and our programs and our stations could be heard worldwide so that you could have a global audience. Anyone you've ever met that's ever produced anything thinks they should have a global audience for it. And now, really all of that is possible. The changes in technology have been remarkable, and we've really morphed from public radio into public media, which really means radio plus technology, plus the web and digital services that are available to it. Our oldest company, Minnesota Public Radio, is celebrating its 40th anniversary, and in that time, it's made considerable progress. It's a regional network that has about 800,000 listeners that consume about 7 hours of programming a day each, a week each. So that's, what is that, 7 times, 5.6 million hours of content being consumed through a 37-station set of networks. There are 3 of them, one classical, one news, and one that's alternative music. 90,000 people are individual supporters of it, and they contribute about $12.3 million out of a budget of about $64 million. So in a state with fewer than 5 million people, that's a pretty good set of numbers to hit. And it gives you some idea of the potential of the stations here in Los Angeles. We're hoping that KPCC will have that same percentage of the 14 million people that it covers here in the Los Angeles area. Our sister station in Los Angeles is KPCC at 89.3, which I always need to remember to tell you in case you want to tune it in on the way home. And it has established the most extensive local public radio news operation in Los Angeles, with bureaus in the Inland Empire, downtown Los Angeles, Orange County, Pasadena, Sacramento. Today, KPCC has about 420,000 listeners, which is well over double what it had when Southern California Public Radio came into existence and began to operate the station in 2000. And we did that under a new governance model that was based on an agreement that some of you have talked a little bit about already with Pasadena Community College. And the model is not quite what you're used to with, say, the LA Times, where the Chicago Tribune came in and bought it and tried to run it from Chicago. This is a model that has local governance by the Southern California Public Radio Board, some of whose members are with us today. The local management under Bill's leadership and his team, and then it has something we call shared services or core services from the American Public Media Group, which provides all kinds of things that don't really affect programming directly, like back office services, finance, legal, and all of the infrastructure. And those are shared. So the money that Southern California Public Radio gains from its audience goes directly into the programming. And one of the reasons it's growing so fast is that that programming quality is rising so quickly because of that very efficient model. Nationally, there are about 15 million listeners each week to American Public Media. Most of you think that that's National Public Radio, but in fact, just as there's a CBS and an NBC, there is an NPR and an American Public Media. NPR is the biggest. American Public Media has programs like Prairie Home Companion with Garrison Keillor, or Marketplace and Weekend America, both of which are produced in the Frank Stanton Studios here in Los Angeles. And it is the second largest to National Public Radio, and the only one that actually operates radio stations in addition to programming. In addition to those listeners, there are about 1,000,001 unique users. These are not page views or hits or whatever. These are people who access the programming from the website. So 1,000,001 unique users each month coming in that wouldn't have been there if we didn't have these new technologies. That means to me that the digital future is clearly here. Digital media, the internet, wireless capability, they're all causing a seismic shift in all of the models that we've tried to put together for growth and fostering of public media. And it has put the audience in charge. They're in charge of what and when and where they want to listen now. They don't have to rely on our program director to say that this program's on at 11 a.m. They can get it on a podcast and listen to it at 11 p.m. if they want to. So the consumers increasingly set the entertainment and information agendas, and they even provide some of the content that they want to listen to. For broadcasters, that means that we no longer only compete with other broadcasters. We now compete with personalized media services, devices programmed by listeners and viewers themselves, and even with their own content. There's 75 million iPods sold so far by Apple, and a lot of devices that are not in that number that are made by Apple's competitors. And they next year, you'll be able to plug your iPod into your car dashboard, which will let you decide what music you want to listen to, just as you can decide it as you're listening to it walking around. I suspect if you walk around this campus, probably 80% of the students have iPods plugged into their ears as they're moving along. They announced this week that you'll have iPod video in the seat of the airplane, the seat in front of you, so that you can select what you want to watch or listen to while you're flying on an airplane. MySpace and YouTube, some of you know well, some of you think that's alien language, but it is a new type of media, and again, an indication of what's happening to media. Simultaneously with all of these developments and changes has come the rise of wireless technology. So radios that look like radios, sound like radios, are electric, plug into the wall, but they get their signal from Wi-Fi, from the internet, rather than from a radio transmitter, and they work very well. They make any station in any city or any country available on those radios anywhere that you have WiMAX, and soon that'll be anywhere, including in your car. Cell phones, you've undoubtedly read, are now setting up services to download music and video. I'm not sure I want to watch a movie on my cell phone, but there are millions of them out there, and they are another way in which audio can get to you and allow you to control what you want to listen to. I can access American Public Media's archive website and listen to the first performance from 1974 of Garrison Keillor's Prairie Home Companion on my computer, and more importantly, people around the world using search engines who are looking for content about a specific topic can pick it up and search for it and listen to it. And what it does is it gives all of our programming legs or life. We're now finding that some of the programs that we did years ago on interesting topics have more audience in a given day from global web listening that's being driven by search engines than they did when we first broadcast them. So the investment that we made in those programs, which broadcasters hate because you do it and you love it and then it's gone, newspapers can be around and people can come back and look at them again. Now you can not only access it for your own use, but you can access it from the archive. In another year, FM radio stations will be broadcast. They are now, but in another year or two, you'll actually have the equipment to listen to them, broadcasting in digital form, which means that 89.3 will be 89.31, 89.32, and 89.33. Three different program services on that one frequency, which will double or triple the content that will be available to you as you're listening to radio in your cars or wherever. Satellite radio has come along, and all of our national programs are available on satellite radio to people in various parts of the country who can't get any other source. And in a few years, what you think of as a radio in your car will really be just a black box that will receive most of its content from streaming, from Wi-Fi that'll be ubiquitous in every city. You'll be looking at a machine that can bring you the Swiss radio if you want to listen to an opera at 1 o'clock in the afternoon because it's, 8 o'clock in Geneva, or Radio Brazil, or you can listen to Minnesota Public Radio in Los Angeles or KPCC in Geneva. I mean, it won't matter where the source is located, because the internet-fed content, which is much different than transmitter-fed content, is ubiquitous and global. So with all of those changes, we sit and question what's going to happen to us. Are our audiences going to grow, or are they going to shrink? And I think the answer is probably both. The best programmers, the ones who focus on the interests of the audience, will grow, and they have the opportunity to get significant audiences that weren't able to access them before. Locally based information, stations that concentrate on reflecting the place where they live, is probably what is going to be most successful. Even those of you who consider yourselves citizens of the world probably have a place that you consider home, and your home interests generally are primary. Your politics tend to be about where you live, and those are the kinds of things that, have done well by localized broadcasting stations and media stations, will be most effective. But the use of media at home or in your car while you're traveling or whatever is really changing. The digital and web-based media are eating into the radio audiences without question. iPods, if you're a radio station that broadcasts popular music, iPods are already significantly altering the number of people who are choosing to listen to the iPod versus listening to a radio station. Projections also show a rise in the use of all web-based media to a point where it actually equals the very high level of daily radio listening over the next 5 years. So again, anything web-based is on an upward trajectory, and the question is how many of those people will we be able to bring into our media companies, which is why we no longer think of them solely as radio companies. But if your vision is to sort of continue to do what you've always done and hold on to the old models, you're probably not going to survive. A sustained decline in listenership is inevitable if you don't embrace the new technologies, and the financial results of that will be catastrophic particularly for nonprofit organizations that haven't thought of any other way to support themselves. For us, the ability to increase individual giving and underwriting revenue relies on growing numbers of listeners and greater loyalty from those listeners. They need to feel better about what we're doing, feel that they're being served well, that they're engaged with us, and if that happens, then the philanthropic part of it will work pretty well. But, and this will be no surprise, Jim, to you, this probably happened a dozen times in your career, but we are at yet another critical juncture where we've got to figure out whether we stay with the status quo or whether we can afford to take the leap into all of these new technologies. The medium I know best, radio, is going to have to change more in the next 5 years than it has in the previous 40. So what I want to talk a bit about today is how we, in the public media industry, strengthen the communities that we serve, the country that we live in, and the medium of public radio itself, and how can we do all of that and at the same time support it. We can do it. We know it can be done because some are already doing it, and it really means getting the institutional thinking that governs many of our public media companies out of the equation. What we've learned is that we're just touching the surface of a bigger vision and a new role for public media as significant, independent community institutions in their own right. Public media are different from commercial media. We have no shareholders, we have no private owners. That means that all of the net financial performance that comes from a public radio or public media company goes back into the product. There isn't any other place that it can go. So our economic equation is really the reverse of our commercial peers. For us, higher quality content costs more. It generally results in a smaller audience, and yet that's a quality audience, and the audience tends to reward us with more revenue. Commercial operators often find that higher quality and does result in higher production costs, smaller audiences, but less ad revenue as a result of all of that, and the equation goes the other way. You lose money. So we have two totally different economic systems, and each of those serves its important role in the media world. The nonprofit model works, and the question for us is how do we keep it working? How do we preserve and grow that public media model? And I've got several thoughts on that. The first is that we have to embrace technological change. We've just simply got to be there on all the platforms and all of the formats. Using the web, the internet, the iPod-like devices is absolutely key, and it really can strengthen our stations and make them available as the technology changes, make them available beyond our borders, make them available throughout California, for example, or throughout the world. But it doesn't come for free. Every time we use one of these wonderful new technologies, every time a listener streams a program that we've produced, it costs us money. It costs the producer money because of the bandwidth that takes. So think of it as a a collect call every time you download something onto your iPod to the producer. And if you use 1 hour a day of audio every day of the week for 1 year, you cost us about $4. It's not too bad, you think. 1,000 people do that, it's $4,000, we can afford that. But if 1 million people do that, and of course we all want more people listening, it's $4 million. And frankly, if 10 million people do that, we're probably bankrupt. But only until we get enough users in those new systems to build a business plan that works for them. There are business plans that will work, they just don't work until you get mass usage. And once that happens, we in public media as well as in commercial media suddenly have a direct relationship with the audience. It's a one-to-one relationship. It eliminates all of the intermediaries, and if you were Time Warner and that happened, you would be able to get rid of everybody between you and the customer, and you would make a lot more money than you're making now. So the issue is, how do you bridge it? How do you get from here to there? You have to be there, but you're going to have some rough water in the middle. Second thing we need to do is strengthen local content. You all know what's happening to local content and television and newspapers and radio stations, and we've really got to speak to our audience where they live. The third is to strengthen and deepen and enrich our content. Thomas Jefferson once said that as long as people are well informed, they can be trusted with their government. And Jefferson was clearly saying that at a time when informing people was pretty difficult to do. There was a time when I think you could say that this country was well informed, and I'm afraid now we're in a situation where a great many people who consume an awful lot of media are not well informed. So if you look at what's happening to news organizations, you find that more and more of them, for a whole variety of reasons, are abrogating some or all of their former role as providing the essential information that guides the democracy of our country. I've got a file of clippings several inches thick in my office, and every week I add more to it. NBC announced I think it was 2 weeks ago, they were laying off 700 people in the news division, but viewers won't notice it. Well, that would seem to say something about what they were doing in the first place. Newspapers are having a terrible time, and nowhere is a better example of that than here in Los Angeles, where the Los Angeles Times is fighting both a decline in ad revenue because these online services are so effective in cannibalizing it, and a decline in circulation, partly because of a change in culture and partly because of a new generation that's getting their news and information in different ways. 2 weeks ago, Dan Rather talked about his new job with a cable channel called HDNet and claimed that he liked it there because anything controversial was considered bad for business at the mainstream networks, meaning CBS was unwilling to go where Dan wanted to go, and now he was excited to have the freedom to do what he wanted. However, he then went on to say, when asked where he gets his news, that he gets up early in the morning and reads online headlines, and then he reads 3 newspapers thoroughly. So his news is not really his news. His news is the news of the mainstream media. And if the mainstream media, if those 3 newspapers he's reading thoroughly, aren't as good as they used to be, Dan Rather isn't going to be as good as he used to be. So these are the things we worry about and we think about. And we think there's a better model for informing our product and informing the public, and it's something we call public insight journalism. It combines a strong focus on public engagement and the diversity of opinion and ideas that's out there in the audience. So it's making our coverage more relevant by tapping the ideas and the knowledge of the public. We often tell them we don't want their opinions. We don't want them to tell us there's too much traffic. We want them to tell us what they know about how that could be changed, how that could be improved, why it is the way that it is. So who can provide fresh perspectives for news and information programming? Why do the same sources keep turning up on the same stations and the same networks and in the same printed press? Where are the enterprise stories, the original stories? Where's the independent research and new perspectives from new thinkers? How do we know that there aren't people out there who are much more interesting than the people that we seem to be seeing and hearing on our radio and television and newspapers? What we've done is work on a space, a trusted space, where people can contribute their knowledge to us. We don't want them to go out and cover the news. We want them to cover the areas of expertise that they have and teach us about it. And in the process, we think that we can develop a depth and a quality of information by drawing on something that was always there, this very smart group of people that gathers around us. They're people like you. They've had experiences or are having them. They know. There's nobody in this group that knows everything about everything, but there are an awful lot of people who know an awful lot about one aspect of the world and are willing to tell us about it. We've got 22,000 people now in the database, all stratified by their specific knowledge. So you might be an expert in early childhood education or some aspect of healthcare, and that's where you are, and that's when we call on you if we're looking to do something in that area. So the ability to draw knowledge, make the content better, and even to set the agenda, the daily agenda of news. Who sets it? Who decides what Dan Rather should read in those 3 newspapers? Well, we all know who does it, but we think there's probably more important stories that never get touched, that never surface, that will be important to people in their lives, and this is beginning to come through using public insight journalism. The next piece after that is to engage the audience. And this takes us one step further, just beyond listening and beyond interactivity. To gain access to even more sophisticated digital platforms, 2 years ago, we founded and invested in a company called Gather.com. And it's a social networking site. You probably heard the word. You may or may not be current on exactly what it means, but it provides a way for listeners with facets of their life beyond just what they've tuned into us for, that they want to find other people to connect with. So if you're interested in politics, you can come and come on Gather.com. You can write about it. You can engage in debate with other people about it. If you're interested in fly fishing, if you're interested in any aspect of your life or the elements of your personality, Gather.com for us gives us a place for you to come and like the high school kids who are on MySpace all the time, Gather's a place for adults with real content, real information, and real experience to share it with other people in areas where they just don't have other colleagues that they can talk about these things with. They don't have neighbors. They don't have people in their family that are interested in doing it. So it's a way of engaging the audience. We just did take writers, people who have never been writers before, wanted to engage with professional writers. We took them on a cruise together, and the young, fresh writers were able to learn from the experienced writers, and there was no other place in their life where that kind of experience could exist. We do it with a youth-oriented station we've started called The Current, and it's a station which appeals to 20-year-olds. At 20, a lot of people aren't particularly engaged in public policy, but The Current not only serves them with music they want, but tries to get them to engage in the elections, knowing who the candidates are, what are the issues with the Supreme Court, etc. So we have something we call Policy in a Pint, and we bring them together and they spend an hour talking about the Supreme Court, and then they have a beer and dance and have a great time. We may eventually go as far as facilitating people who want to live in the same community together. people who are interested in books and politics and travel and conversation and service and citizenship and self-improvement. And they're there and they're connecting through Gather, and the question is, how much can we let them do in their actual lives, in their physical lives? So these are ways in which new media enable us to draw increasing value out of our audience and provide it back to them for their own value. The next thing we've got to do is diversify and stabilize the funding base and find some new economic models that will work for public media. And if you ask people in our company what characterizes the company, they'll say creativity first and entrepreneurialism second, an entrepreneurial spirit. And both of those have served us extremely well. To survive and to grow, we've got to think about self-funding mechanisms beyond just the traditional philanthropic support. So we've done some of that. We've built some businesses that were appropriate to the nature of what we were doing in public broadcasting. These are for-profit businesses, and they have, as Bill Davis mentioned earlier, we call it social purpose capitalism, and it entails applying the traditional principles of capitalism to a nonprofit organization in order to better benefit the public sector. National Public Radio was lucky to get a major gift from Joan Kroc, the McDonald's heiress, of about $200 million. And we've yet to meet our version of that. We keep looking, but in the meantime, we really think we've got to earn our way to some extent. So all the way back to 1980, Ronald Reagan, when he became president, said we'd have to earn more of our budget, and we paid attention to him. We found assets beyond just radio towers and transmitters and studios that would help us do that. We looked at the value that the audience brought and found that there were products and services that they liked. So we developed a catalog that we eventually sold to the Target Corporation for $130 million that provided them with things that they wanted that related to the programs that they were interested in. And there have been quite a number of those businesses, and in total, something like $270 million has been earned from those businesses. Much of it went into the permanent endowment, and a lot of it went into special projects like the purchase of Marketplace or the development of Southern California Public Radio. The model has worked best for us, I think, and it's helped us create an independent entity with a sound financial base that can, I think, last through the turbulent times that we're going to have over the next few years with all this change. The sixth thing that we need to do is find new models of ownership and governance, and this one we've illustrated probably best with the development of Southern California Public Radio. In the 40s through about the 1970s, colleges and universities held the licenses for these public broadcasting stations. And they were wonderful stewards of them, and they had them for a whole variety of reasons. But now the medium's potential has really leapfrogged what most of those institutions have been able to think of doing with them. And they're only going to be fully realized. Their potential is only going to fully come out if the new models can be free of the constraints of the institutions. Some institutions have been very thoughtful and forward thinking about that. Others have been really strangling their stations, and nothing significant is coming from them. So with the experiment, which is what we thought it was when we were able to lease KPCC from Pasadena City College, seeing how successful that has been and what a benefit it has been to this community, we really strongly believe that there should be more of that, and hope that there will be ways in which the governance structure will reflect the potential of the public media organizations and not have them be part of another organization with a different purpose. The last one is to recruit fresh leadership. The trail that Jim Loper was blazing back in the 1960s and that was paved when I came along is really now an Autobahn. And it takes future leaders who can travel at that pace. They really need to be able to manage a change in all of a sea change, really, in technology and in communications that we've not seen before. We have an industry with an unusual combination of mission and values, technology, show business, growth, opportunity, even reasonable compensation these days. And those are attributes that if I were 20 years old right now and I had the opportunity to look at a job from Disney or Fox or even Google, I'd think seriously first about public media and what could be done with it, what is still not done. It's still one of the most underdeveloped of the media concepts that's in our society today, and probably the one with the greatest potential. So part of our job is getting that message through to fresh, new, capable leaders. These emerging public media companies are important institutions. Some are as important in terms of reach and content as many of our universities are. Others have the potential to be, and if they continue to change, if they continue to take advantage of new opportunities and technologies, they will thrive in the long term. But they have to be nurtured. They have to be pushed to perform by better independent boards and board members. They should be supported. I think that they can bring this country together and this community together in a way that few institutions can, because of the reach of that signal and the diversity of the populations that have access to it. So that's why I continue to be excited about this fascinating sector called public media, and it looks to me like a winner going forward. Thank you.
If you'd step here for a minute. I think I speak for all of us in saying that that was both a fascinating and, in many ways, a hopeful speech. And if there's anybody who is going to figure out how to invent the future of public radio, it's Bill Kling. And it was great to be here during this session. This speech will be put into pamphlet form, as Mary Bitterman's was next year, and it will be sent to all of you and distributed widely. As you leave today, there will be copies for those who didn't get it already of Mary Bitterman's speech from last year, and also Adam Powell of our faculty, who wrote a fascinating book called Reinventing Local News that focuses in part on the work that you did and some other very exciting ideas for this field. Bill, we have here someplace a very small gift for you. And should I open it maybe? Well, no, you can open it here. Congrats! I love the wrapping paper. If you have any more of that available, we can start. Actually, that's a product you can start selling on public radio. And here it is. It's a wonderful trophy that says UST Annenberg School of Communication, the James L. Loper Lecture in Public Service Broadcasting, Mr. William H. Kling, 2006. We know you've got shelves full of awards. This is one that will not take a lot of space, but it takes a big space in our heart. Congratulations to Bill Kling. And we'll look forward to seeing all of you at next year's James Loper Lectureship. Thank you so much.